the Sustainability Management Master's Program, you're answering one simple question. Do you care about your future generation? If you care about your kids, their grandkids, then you care about sustainability. And a sustainability manager is someone who has the tools to make people understand how they can contribute towards developing a sustainable world. We have both part-time and full-time students. Our curriculum is 30 hours. Instead of thesis, we have a research project course and a seminar course which provides them with the kind of research background they will need to be successful in their job. But at the same time, sustainability is not always everything about environment. It also relates to the business. They will take a sustainable business strategies course. They will take a project management course. Most of these courses are going to be taught by industry people, the people who are doing sustainability on a daily basis as a part of their job. Any organization that has a large number of employees and has a physical infrastructure, they will have to have a sustainability office. If you have the passion to develop and maintain a sustainable world, come to us and we will help you shape your passion into a career which will create an impact. Infrastructure. In that role, she oversees educational programming in the institute, including the Envision Sustainability Professional Credential. And she's going to talk a little bit more about that in the breakout room. Continuing education courses and training for Envision verifiers and ISI trainers. So Leslie was formerly a teaching professor in the Department of Civil, Environmental and Ocean Engineering at Stevens. Actually, she was here much before I joined Stevens. And I got her since 2016 of January when I joined until last summer when she left to join Institute for Sustainable Infrastructure. So Leslie is a registered professional engineer in the state of New Jersey and a fellow of the American Society of Civil Engineers. She has received many awards, including the Educator of the Year, by both the New Jersey and the North Jersey chapters of ASC. Leslie is a Stevens alumna all throughout. She got all her degrees, BE, ME, and PhD in civil engineering from Stevens. So today, Leslie will talk about sustainable infrastructure and the role of Envision. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you. It's good to be here. I was at Stevens for 23 years.
Yep.
And, now I'm working in the nonprofit arena, and it's interesting. I'm enjoying it immensely. I do miss the interaction with the students, but fortunately, after 23 years, I have a lot of alumni, and they've been keeping me really busy. So it's been really a nice transition for me. So today is what I'm going to do is I'm going to speak to you about the role of Envision in academia, as well as the future of sustainable infrastructure and why I feel and why ISI feels that Envision is something that as a student, a master's student, you should really look into because it's just going to add value to your degree, especially if you're going to focus your career on sustainability. And before I go into a lot of details, let me just introduce you to ISI, the Institute for Sustainable Infrastructure. It's a 501c3 nonprofit education and research organization. It was actually founded by the American Public Works Association, the American Council for Engineering Companies, and the American Society of Civil Engineers in 2010. Each of these founding organizations, there's a fun history about it, was developing their own unique sustainable infrastructure program and saw the need for a standard framework for classification of sustainable practices. So the organizations decided to work together, and they formed ISI to develop and manage a common tool with a common language and a common framework. And along the way, there was collaboration with federal agencies, universities, consultants, professional societies, municipalities, and others. And the resulting tool is the Envision rating system, which, as you can see by its history, was vetted. And as of last week, we currently have over 300 architect, engineering, and consulting companies as members. We have over 250 government agencies that we are partners with, and over 131 academic institutions. Our partners are global. We work very closely with the Canadian Society of Civil Engineering, the Italian Construction Certification Organization, the Mexican Federation of Civil Engineers, and most recently, the China Engineering Training. Our materials have been translated into French, Spanish, Italian, and Chinese. Our research partners are the Harvard University Zofnass Program for Sustainable Infrastructure, and they are now part of ISI. So infrastructure plays a critical role in the current global challenges, and it's a priority of the current political administration. These challenges range from climate change, resilience, equity and social justice, environmental protection and biodiversity, public health, and economic recovery. Infrastructure is part of all of these challenges. So what is Envision? Envision is a framework used by planners and engineers to make all infrastructure more sustainable and resilient. It is also being used by contractors, architects, and landscape architects recently. So we're broadening beyond the engineer and planner framework. Envision in education is very important because ABET, the accreditation program for undergraduate programs, requires sustainability. And it has also now been embedded, Envision, in the new ASCE 73-23, the new standard practice for sustainable infrastructure. The image on this slide I actually took at the recent ASCE Inspire conference. And if you go on the ASCE website and you look in their bookstore, you will find the bound version of our V3 manual available for purchase. Of course, this is available as a free PDF. And you can see that there is a new paradigm concerning sustainability, and it is required that students have a knowledge of sustainable design, and Envision will help create a better professional. Envision provides a common framework for engineers, planners, and contractors to make all infrastructure sustainable and resilient. So what is Envision? It's a set of standards. It's a framework, as I said. It provides a common guidance for improving the design, planning, and construction of sustainable and resilient infrastructure. It is a decision-making guide, not a set of prescribed measures. It exceeds the minimum requirements, so it addresses all the minimum requirements of state, federal, and local codes, but it encourages decision-making beyond that level. And it does incentivize higher performance. It recognizes projects that make significant contributions to sustainability, and it provides a common language and collaboration so that these decisions can be shared globally and lessons learned can be expanded beyond that particular project. So you've probably seen this. This is the sustainability Venn diagram that includes the environment, social, economic, and where they all meet is what we look at as sustainable. So for a project or program or a city or nation to be sustainable, it's essential that these critical elements all be in balance. And this balance is defined by how a project, a community, can continue functioning over the long term. And the way we traditionally worked in the infrastructure, a large part of this balance was missing. And if you go back historically and you see how infrastructure separated communities and divided neighborhoods, that certainly was not a sustainable approach or resilient approach. And that approach is now being, reinvented, and those designs are being redone. And those communities are trying to be brought together again. So today, project planners and owners are becoming more aware of the things that truly define successful infrastructure. And sustainable development isn't achieved without facing a few inherent challenges. We must consider not only the finite resources available to us, but also recognize that the environment is rapidly changing. So we really need to consider this further. And if we look at what defines sustainable development, and we can look at the challenges, we can see on this graph that was developed by the World Wildlife Fund that it recommends that we compare Human Development Index to the quality of life, to the economical footprint, and the consumption of resources. So if you want to look at this, we can look at this relationship, and we see that developed countries have a Human Development Index between 0.8 and 1, and that provides a good quality of life. And the available resources on the earth per person was calculated to be about 1.8 global hectares per person. And this allows us to define what we call a sustainability quadrant. And this is the region on this graph where countries have a good quality of life with minimal resource consumption. And this is ideally where you want to be as the ultimate goal for sustainability. So how are we doing globally? And you can see not so well. So if we look at the data and we populate the graph, we can see that very few countries actually are in that sustainable quadrant. So the challenge now is, how can we make a meaningful shift towards sustainability, achieving the sustainability quadrant without sacrificing the quality of life? And how do we in the infrastructure industry begin to address this? So another definition of sustainable development that was produced in 1987 by the Brundtland Report simply says, sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So you as students, you're the future. You have to think beyond what is going on now and understand what are going to be the needs of the future and how can we design for those. And that's a challenge because we don't know what we are going to face in the future. Operating conditions are going to change, requiring determinations of new averages, variances and possible extremes that we can't even think about. Variables and new relationships among those existing variables will appear and need to be taken into account. So what we have as a widely available resource today may not be the case in 10 or 100 years from now. Resource demands will drive up the cost and the scarcity of important materials and fuels. We have already experienced frequent extreme weather events and atypical weather patterns right now in California. Look what's going on with the rain and the extreme weather and the mudslides. So what are we going to look at as our new operating environment? And now, what is infrastructure's role in this? We have to ask, what is infrastructure's role? How does infrastructure help us support sustainable development in the face of these inherent challenges? So efficient infrastructure is an essential component for our growing economy. We transport, our transportation system brings goods to market, workers to jobs, children to school, and family to stores and recreation areas in a safe and timely manner. We need dependable water and wastewater systems to bring fresh water to industry, agriculture, and residents. We need reliable electricity to supply businesses and factories and work unimpeded to bring high-level convenience to our homes and across our nation. We have an extensive telecommunication network connecting people and businesses across the globe and enabling for the fast flow of information. So infrastructure has to deliver the required services that we all take for granted on a day-to-day basis, but it has to be affordable while conserving the natural resources and energy. So when we look at to design and construct and operate of our infrastructure systems, we have a sustainable, we have to look at the negative impacts on our natural resources and our ecological systems. And if we allow to continue this overuse of our resources, we're going to have devastating consequences. So we have to look at also the long term. Look at how we design things. Typical highways have a lifespan of 20 to 50 years, bridges 30 to 75 years. Pipelines can be up to 100 years, and dams, if serviced correctly and inspected correctly, 50 to 100 years. So we really have to get it right. We have to understand that whatever we build today, we have to design so that we're using the right technologies and the right things, because we have to get it right today for the future. So what are some of the strategies we're looking for? We have to make incremental improvements. We have to use standardized tools that can be approached across industries. We have to document these practices and share that documentation globally so that people understand what we're doing. When we are implementing changes, we want to monitor performance. Is it as effective as we predicted? And if not, why? And then we have to calculate and keep track of our lessons learned so that we can share them. In other words, we want to try to achieve a global view while keeping in mind our local values. So how does this help you as a student? Why should you care? And there are 4 basic reasons why you should care. And remember, I'm coming at this from not only the ISI perspective of the new education director. And by new, I mean, I've been in this role for literally 5 months yesterday. So I'm new to this. I was in higher ed for 23 years. I was using Envision in my classroom for the last 8 years. So it's something I'm very passionate about and I believe in. So first, using the tools can teach you about new and upcoming area of civil engineering, sustainable management, planning. It's not just in civil engineering, it's environmental engineering. There's many facets to it. Second, it can help you with your career path. You can be more marketable. Having an awareness of Envision and being an ENVSP allows you to work on a project that can be submitted for verification. Third, it can make you more attractive to be included on project teams, because if you're on a project team, you can apply for verification. And finally, it covers an area of engineering profession that is important for the future, and it will help you improve the design of any project you're working on. So where do we begin? The first step is our good old Envision user manual. We're now in V3. V2 was retired. So anytime you are looking at it, make sure you're looking at version 3. It constitutes the written framework of the Envision framework. I used the word framework twice. It includes the best practices for performance, and it includes the full list of all the categories within the Envision. The Envision framework is not just inclusive to the guidance manual. That's the first step. We also provide a self-assessment checklist. So while you're going through your design, you can access the self-assessment checklist, which is a very easy Excel spreadsheet. And you can start looking and assessing design parameters and seeing, well, where does it rate within the Envision framework? You can also look at professional training and credentialing, getting your ENVSP, moving beyond that and becoming a verifier, or even completing the applicant's course so you understand what's involved with submitting a project for verification. Verification awards are very similar to LEED. We give verified silver, gold, and platinum based on the percentage of points you achieve in the total of the 1,000 points I'm going to be getting you more familiar with. So let's first look at infrastructure and the types of infrastructure Envision was designed to address. And it's all types. It's energy, it's water, it's waste, it's transportation, it's landscape, and it's IT. So really Envision applies to all of it. It wasn't designed just for roadways or wastewater treatment plants. There are over 900 sustainability guidance and rating systems were evaluated when they created Envision. And the goal was really to fill all the gaps. And it is not intended for buildings. You'll notice that buildings are not on there. We'll leave that up to LEED. We're not going to compete with LEED. We want to be a freestanding rating. And there's 5 categories within the Envision rating system: quality of life, leadership, resource allocation, natural world, and climate and resilience. And within each of those 5 categories, we have subcategories. And you'll notice there's nothing specific to a bridge or a roadway or an airport, because it's a overall approach that those type of projects meet these 5 criteria, will meet these 5 criteria within the points that we have. So again, we have these 5 criteria are broken down into sub-criteria. So you'll see quality of life is broken down into well-being, mobility, community. And within these, we have 64 possible sustainability credits. Now, each of these 64 credits is divided further into points, and there's a total of 1,000 points that you can achieve in your denominator. Now, you'll notice that I have highlighted on the bottom of each of these criteria, you have credits that are highlighted, and those are our innovative credits. Those are, you're at Stevens, the Innovation University. Those are where you think outside of the box. You do something that hasn't been done before. And the beautiful thing about the innovative credits are they don't factor into the denominator. They only factor into the numerator. So you get a lot of bang for your buck with your innovation approaches because they give you a higher percentage when you go towards your verification. Now, granted, the documentation for our innovative points is pretty extensive. We want to make sure that if you're proposing a very unique pavement or a new type of green infrastructure, that you're actually monitoring it and that you're collecting the data so that you can prove that it is working and you can share the lessons with others, and that innovative element will now be shared and utilized by others. How we rate everything, there's 5 levels of achievement. The lowest level is simply improved, and that is performance that is above the convention. So we're addressing all of our needs. We address our codes and our standards, but we're going a step above. We're implementing green infrastructure. We're implementing some type of sustainable and resilient practice that is pretty common. That's going to meet the improved level. That's the lowest level, and you'll see that those have the fewest points. Then we have enhanced. Enhanced is performance, which is now achieving the sustainable level. Superior, we are very high on sustainable. Conserving, we have achieved 0 negative impact. We are not negatively impacting our community or our environment in any way. And restorative, where you get the most points, we're actually improving the community and the environment. So those new infrastructure projects that are rerouting freeways and highways that split communities in half and are being removed and rerouted, that's restorative. So that gives you added points. Each of our 64 credits is broken into what we call these credits like this. And I want to just go into what is in a credit. Each credit has a title and an ID number. So this one I'm looking at is the first one, is your quality of life, is improving the community quality of life. It has an intent and a statement. It has your metrics. So there's 26 possible points here that are divided up accordingly into improved to restorative of how many you can achieve. It gives you the total possible points, the levels of achievement, a description. So right here, you have a very detailed description of this. You now have the different levels of achievement, A through G, that you can achieve. And these are your performance improvements, again, A through G, and it will tell you how are they doing it and what are you doing. And then you have your evaluation criteria and your documentation. So if you're going to be proposing this in a design, it allows you to show what are you going to have to include in your design and your documentation. Are you including the community and the stakeholders in your design and in your choices? And then something very interesting is we have related credits. Each of these credits doesn't live in a silo. It's related to something else, typically within another credit. So here we have quality of life being related to leadership and also our other quality, CR, which is now our climate and resilience. So when you cross over, you'll see that they work together for the benefit of the project. So let me go to the next slide. Oh, so here I was supposed to click as I went through everything. Sorry about that. Again, here's a higher level view of what a credit looks like. And you'll see if we're improved, we're achieving A and B. So basically, the project meets and supports the community needs and goals. If we're going to enhance or superior, we can see that the communities are being meaningfully engaged and they're identifying how the project supports the community and their needs and what their goals are. Moving on to restorative, you'll see that the project is proactively addressing trends and changing the social, economic, and/or environmental conditions within the community in order to ensure a higher quality of life over the long term. So that's huge if you can achieve restorative. Again, we want to recognize innovation, going above and beyond the highest achievement level for a specific credit. We're overcoming barriers and we're creating solutions that are scalable and transferable. And as I said, innovation drives advancement and sustainability. And here is how Envision encourages innovation by creating space for it and rewarding it. And you include innovative technologies, best practices, or processes. And as I said, these points are only in the numerator. So they're not going into the bottom in those 1,000 or subtracting any that are non-applicable. They're being added, and it really boosts your percentage for your verification. So now let's move on to the pre-assessment checklist, which is another thing that is available on the website. And here we have the 59 credits in the 5 categories. We take out the 5 credits for innovation because we can't have a pre-assigned checklist for that. Otherwise, we're going to discourage innovation because innovation shouldn't be in here. It's going to be something you come up with. So this is a free tool you can use to access from your dashboard, and I'll go into our website later with the class, and it can help you gain familiarity with Envision and help you make design decisions. So here is where we have now possible points within a project, and as you go through the checklist, it will tell you how are you doing in comparison to how the project is doing. And as we move further on into that, I clicked too fast, you can see that similar to lead, Envision addresses the horizontal. The vertical. So a building is vertical and lead addresses everything within those vertical limits. Think of Envision as horizontal. We're going to use Envision in the engineering, planning, construction, and environmental domain. We can calibrate projects using our self-assessment. We can recognize awareness and promote change. We are transparent in our process because of the documentation that's required. And you can see that the specific roles for ENVSPs, the Envision Sustainable Professional, the verifier, and ISI staff all work together when a project is submitted to us for verification. So first it's the ENVSP working on the project. It is then submitted for review by the ISI staff in our verification. And then if it meets the minimum criteria, it goes through to the verifier. The awards are achieved based on percentages. And again, here is your very basic calculation. Your points that you have earned plus your innovative points divided by your total points minus any non-applicable credits. Now, proving a credit is non-applicable isn't that complicated, and there are non-applicable points. We have points associated with farmland. If we don't have farmland in our site, we can remove those points. And therefore, we can say that we can sum up our non-applicable points, subtract them from the 1,000, and that now is our new denominator. Envision helps us harness these strategies to design sustainable infrastructure that faces development challenges head on. And in the next few slides, we'll explore their approach and how we address the change. So the first thing we want to look at is our hierarchy. Envision was created with a hierarchy going from top down, and we want to look at what we view as important. Avoidance, measures taken to avoid creating impacts from the onset. So minimization, measures taken to reduce the duration, intensity, and extent of negative impacts. We know during construction there's going to be negative impacts. There's going to be dust, there's going to be noise, there's going to be traffic, but we can look to minimize that. Abatement, measures taken to rehabilitate degraded ecosystems. Offsetting are the measures taken to compensate for any residual or adverse impacts. The Envision framework applies this hierarchy across a range of topics. For example, when we're considering the social impacts of a project, it's just as important to first avoid the adverse impacts as it is when considering the environmental impacts. So we want to look at it in 3 dimensions: the project phase, stakeholder collaboration, and performance achievement. So we want to look at the project being durable and flexible, and we want to look at end of life disassembly or upcycling. We want to understand our stakeholder collaboration and get our project team collaborating early to understand the stakeholders' needs and their concerns. And then we want to go beyond sustainable, and we want to achieve restorative systems and a sustainable equilibrium. So where these all fit together is not an easy task. Now we've got to factor in the cost. So Envision can help guide decision makings, and again, back to our self-assessment checklist, because during construction phase, we have to address the cost of making the change and the ability to make the change, and where these two meet is where it's optimal for the design. And that's going to be where we get the best cost to achieve the maximum amount of change. So Envision achieves better project management, and we can create multidisciplinary teams. We encourage communication across the entire project, from our lowest level stakeholder to our owners and our contractors. We want to drive creativity and innovation. And of course, we really, really, really want to promote meaningful stakeholder engagement and build community support and meet the needs of the community. So here, and we'll get into a little bit more of these projects I'm highlighting, is a recently verified pedestrian bridge in Boston, as well as the historic Fourth Ward Park in Atlanta, Georgia. These are the final projects. The pre-projects I'll get to later in the presentation. So traditional engineering is only the beginning. Envision encourages, even requires us to gain new knowledge and broaden our perspectives. And to truly do sustainable infrastructure, we really need to understand the interconnected nature of what we're doing and how the project connects to the community in which it's going to function. And a new breed of practitioners we're trying to create has to understand that wider implication. And Envision will help you improve the skills you need to plan, build, and operate in this new paradigm, because it captures, retains, and disseminates knowledge. And it's designed to guide sustainable projects from conception to design. So let's look at an example of conceptual solutions. We want to take a simple example of traditional considerations: available technology, costs, existing conditions, and stakeholder needs. And we want to look at Envision taking these traditional considerations into account while expanding upon them for a more comprehensive understanding of the impacts of the selected materials and the choices available. So Envision will prompt further consideration for a comprehensive understanding of the impacts of the project opportunities. And if we want to take that further, we can see what are the opportunities for an innovation, what are the community's values, what are the full life cycle costs of the project, and who pays those? And how can the project restore degraded systems? So in other words, let's address these questions at the beginning. So we're building the project right, and we're building the right project. So infrastructure has such an impact on the quality of life and an impact on the resource consumption that we really have to think about the impact and demand of resources within the infrastructure industry when we start a project and not just as we're completing it. So let me support this to just let you know what's being done today. Where is Envision being embraced? I already introduced it within the ASCE new regulations for sustainability, the ASCE 73-23, which actually embraces Envision and parallels Envision very carefully. It's a 64-page manual. It's an easy read. If you're interested in it, let me know. I'll happily share it with your professor and he can put it up on your Canvas site. So I want to just go through some of the federal regulations, state legislations, city and county resolutions, funding, RFP requirements that are now mandating Envision. So let's look at this one. Infrastructure in Canada through the climate lens. All approved methodologies to assess climate risk and resilience within the ISO 31000 must include Envision. It's not saying it has to be verified, but the design must align with Envision. California recently passed a bill, SB 44, streamlined judicial review for environmental transit projects that meet sustainability goals. Bullet number 2. The Envision rating system of the infrastructure of the Institute for Sustainable Infrastructure must be utilized. We are huge partners with LA Metro. Chris Liban, the head of LA Metro, is the newest member of our board of directors, and he is a staunch advocate for Envision, and that's in California. Miami-Dade, coming back to the East Coast. Resolution adopting the Institute for Sustainable Infrastructure rating system for Miami-Dade infrastructure projects must be addressed. St. Peter's Code, also in Florida, must achieve Envision Gold. Grant funding and cost sharing at state agencies, California Department of Water Resources, Gold or Platinum Award recognition level by the Institute for Sustainable Infrastructure must be achieved. RFPs. So again, provide a certified Envision sustainable professional on your staff. Recent student of mine just emailed me. He is currently employed as an engineering consultant. They're going after an RFP and they have to have an ENVSP. I had my seniors get their ENVSP while they were still at Stevens. He's the only one in his company. He's working on the RFP. He sent me a little note. Thanks. So again, project requiring Envision, the consultant will be responsible for completing the Envision rating assessment. And again, requiring the ISI third-party verification, going through again with verification. And here I saved the best for last, local Port Authority of New York and New Jersey sustainable infrastructure. With this update, the Port Authority Sustainable Infrastructure Guideline version 2 now leverages the Envision system, bringing the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey into alignment with industry best practices while maintaining custom application criteria relevant to the authority's unique assessment operations. So again, they are now leveraging the Envision rating system within the Port Authority. And here you have their design guideline taken right out of their website. And you can see here, Sustainable Design Workshop. And you can see also the Sustainable Design Workshop again. And the application, fees and registration and verified must be paid to ISI. And they are ISI checklists being used within the Port Authority. Design guidelines. This is again recent as of a few days ago. City of Austin, Texas, built environment, equity, and sustainability, comprehensive credential program with Envision as the first required accreditation. The City Council is mandating policy to advance Envision, change from encouraged to mandated on applicable city projects. Now let's look at some of the verified projects that have achieved verification. This is the newest one that came in on the East Coast. It's the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project, creating a 2.4-mile long flexible flood barrier right up your alley, Phil, from Montgomery Street on Manhattan's Lower East Side to the Astor Levy Playground on East 25th Street. This project enhanced the area with the addition of parks, green space, and received an Envision Gold Award for sustainability from ISI. This is now a Tucana River Wind Farm in Dayton, Washington, also achieved Envision Gold. We now have a solar farm that achieved Envision Platinum. And here you can't get rid of the farmland. That's going to count on this project. The Holland Energy Park, another one that achieved Envision Platinum. And the Surrey Biofuel Facility in British Columbia, Canada, has achieved Envision Platinum. And that's pretty much it for some of the examples. Now I want to move into what the students and the audience can look into is getting your ENVSP credential. As a student, you can earn this for $150. And when I meet in the breakout room, I'll talk a little bit more, but anyone with a .edu address affiliated with a university can achieve their ENVSP at the discounted price of $150. We also have many companies that when they employ interns, the first thing they do with their interns during their first week of internship is to provide them with the support to get their ENVSP, and it works great for them because they pay the student price. How you do it, I'll talk a little bit more about this in the breakout room, but the first step is to log into ISI, go to sustainableinfrastructure.org, and create a membership. That will enable you to access your dashboard. And once you're in your dashboard, you can register to take the training online, unless you want to do it in person at one of our many, many trainings that go on. Then you can access the user manual and the self-assessment checklist. There's tons of resources in the website. I'm showing this here. We have our Envision web credentialing, verification, all those resources at your fingertips. Once you have your ENVSP, it's good for 1 year, and then you have to do credential maintenance. As a student, you pay $0 for that. Anyone else, it's anywhere from $50 to $150 for credential maintenance. And the beautiful thing is the 7 hours of credential maintenance count towards your professional engineering license. So those of you that are eventually going to achieve licensure, you can double dip that. We're also going to be counting towards planners. We're in the process of applying for that cross recognition as well. Envision is used globally. It's not just in the United States and Canada. We have currently 344 verified projects that equate to 273 billion US dollars. And we have 7,920 active credentialed professionals. Those are people that are working on projects to achieve verification. Here's just the projects across the globe as of the end of, across the United States as of the end of the year. And here they are by sector. So you can see transportation is part of it, but water, energy, land and environment, and waste is another large, they also are large sectors. Here we have by state and by province. So of course, California, New York, and Texas are our biggest ones, but we've got Quebec in there, Ontario as well. And here again, to close out the talk, I'm coming up on my time. I just want to show you some before and after examples. So earlier in the presentation, I showed you the historic Fourth Ward in Georgia. Here's what it looked before. Here's what it looked after. And you can see the community played a viable part in this design, and look at the benefit to the community and the green infrastructure that's been implemented here. The Los Angeles wetland, this is achieved Envision Platinum. That's the after image of it. And here again is a dam that now connected two parts of a community that were separated by a river and a dam. We now have a walkway going across it to meet the needs of the community. Here again, a before and after picture of a recent project in Sun Valley watershed, a multi-beneficial project with a which received Envision Platinum. And here's one of the first facilities that was ever receiving Envision Platinum. It does parallel the North Hudson Treatment Plant, which is right across the river from Hoboken, where we have a treatment plant, but we have recreational facilities on top of it. So I'll end that here, and I'll take any questions before we go into the breakout room. If you go onto the ISI website, you can find me very easily. And my email is simply my last name, Brunel, at sustainableinfrastructure.org.
All right. That was a very informative